Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing a scintillating special series watch launched in late 2020. This is the Omega Seamaster Diver 300-meter Nekton Edition, a timepiece dedicated to marine conservation. It also happens to look fantastic. 42 millimeters in stainless steel with a titanium bezel. The watch is 13.7 millimeters thick, 49.7 millimeters lug-to-lug, and the spacing between the lugs is 20 millimeters. We're going to throw the watch on my 16 centimeter circumference wrist to give scale, and you can see from overhead there's plenty of clearance on each side. It is thin enough and sloped on the side, so you could wear it underneath most tight dress cuffs and formal sleeves. From side to side, the main difference between this and the previous 41 millimeter version is that this one features pivoted end links on the bracelet, so though the watch is a little bit broader, the actual distance across the wrist is the same, and you can wear this watch on a wrist as small as 14 centimeters in circumference. There is no problem there. Now, the timepiece does feel very solid. These days, Rolex and Omega bracelet and clasp quality is interchangeable. They are best in the industry, and they are equals of each other, though very different in style. As you can see, this is an interesting hybrid of a dress and a sports bracelet. It's very solid, but it has an unusual combination of small polished intermediates and satin finished flanks. It doesn't look as visually massive as the Rolex Oyster, and that's to its advantage. This has a distinctive look. It is sportier than the original model launched in 1993, however, as the shoulders of the links are more squared off than the original rounded profile. Another change over the years, removable links are now fixed by screws rather than pin sleeves, and you can see that there is a half link built in, and that on both sides. You'll also appreciate that there is a fold-out dive extension. That's not new, though it's always been welcome. What is new for this 2018 to present generation is the presence of a push-button slider, just under 10 millimeters of tool-free push-button adjustment, so you can use this clasp for both full extension over a dive suit as well as precise sizing. Twin trigger release, very solid milled construction, polished bevel, very nice, satin finished. And you can see this example is pre-owned but in outstanding and untouched condition. Now the case has a familiar shape with a satin finished mid case, polished lyre style lugs. They fold inward and they fold outward. They have a handsome divergence with one side satin finished inboard and the outside polished. You have a now conical helium escape valve, and a big change from the previous 41 millimeter watch is that this can now be safely opened while underwater. Its purpose is to release helium from the interior of the case if you are saturation diving. When ascending, that helium needs to get out, and so when the interior pressure exceeds the exterior pressure by 2 to 3 bar, this valve opens up, provided you've screwed it out, and relieves so that the crystals and the seals do not get blown out. The bezel has the most positive feel of any diver 300 meter. This current generation is outstanding. It is 120 click, it is very precise. And though the knurling is a little bit shallow, you're gonna wanna set it before your hands get wet. Nevertheless, the action is of the highest quality since the inception of this model line in 1993. Now, what really sets this version apart is the dial and the bezel, and the bezel is something special. First, it's made of titanium, which distinguishes it from the rest of the case. This insert is titanium and laser ablated, so instead of the conventional ceramic insert, you get this fascinating laser frosted version that has this ablation pattern across its entire surface, as well as relieved and raised indices and numerals. Now, you line up the luminescent index with the minute hand. This is the Bond Seamaster, after all, or descended from that which Pierce Brosnan wore in his era, so these are often described as the Bond hands or the skeleton hands. 0 to 60-minute count-up timer courtesy of the bezel. It's actually easier to read than a chronograph, and I prefer dive bezels to chronos. The dial is unusual. Whereas the standard version of this watch has a date, this one does not. It's clean and balanced and uncrowded as a result. Moreover, whereas the standard ceramic dial features polished primaries and then recesses, this one actually features a matte overall composition. So the base is matte, and then the waves themselves, rather than being recesses, are actually raised up and polished. And laser ablation is also used to create this dial as well as the bezel. A handsome shock of red for the seconds hand and the Seamaster script, and you can see all of this is 300 meters water resistant. I know that's not 1,000 feet, and you know that's not 1,000 feet, but we're just going to press the I believe button. Now there's a lovely sector outside, so you can see there's that outboard sector style track for reading the seconds and the minutes. And then the watch does feature a screw down crown, and if you pull that crown out, you hack the seconds, stop the movement, you can set the watch precisely to a reference time. Underneath the case back, you have the Omega caliber 8806, automatic winding, 55-hour power reserve, single barrel, stop seconds. It does not have a quick set date because it does not have a date, but it does have the coaxial escapement, and it is a master chronometer. So it meets the COSC standards, but it goes way beyond. As a fully cased up watch tested in 6 positions to chronometer standards, also tested for shock resistance, water resistance, anti-magnetism, winding efficiency, and power reserve. The master chronometer standard, created in partnership with the Federal Swiss Institute of Metrology, that federal institute helping to create this new standard. And Omega also equipping the watch with a silicon hairspring and an anti-magnetic escapement. So it is not just 15,000 Gauss resistant, it is 15,000 and beyond. It also, of course, beats away at 25,200 vibrations per hour, a characteristic quirky beat rate distinctive of these coaxials. And the coaxial system, which is a direct and indirect impulse system invented by George Daniels in 1974, today perfected by Omega, it is durable, it extends power reserve, it improves precision, as well as the intervals between services. And finally, it is important to note that the watch is braced against shock with a full balance bridge and a free sprung index. On the reverse side of this Naiad case, which is designed so that it always aligns top to bottom, you can see the image of the Seamaster 2, which is the submersible used by Nekton, which is a conservation and research organization sponsored by Omega. And then you can see the image of the imaginary seabed beneath it. This is a handsome and absolutely scintillating take on Omega's most important diver. Reach out to Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Back with the Diver 300 meter, you can see that the bezel pearl and the minute hand are green selectively, so it's easy to read them relative to each other at a glance in the dark or during a dive.